Hi there, this is Mark with a tutorial for the photo booth templates for your photo booth business. So first of all, I want to thank you for downloading the template that I created. And so the first thing you want to do is actually you would have received this zip file once your purchase was complete. And first thing you want to do is probably unzip it, open it up. Now I happen to have it right here on my desktop ready to go. So I'm going to open that up, and what you should have received in there are several files. Now you would have received a background file, an overlay file, and a Photoshop folder. The Photoshop folder actually contains the editable PSD file, so you're able to edit this file right there to create or change or add text to your template itself. Along with the template, you've also received the Breeze setup coordinates. So these are the coordinate files for Breeze right here. So we have those ready for you to go. So you have to do is input those, and I will have a tutorial on how to do that as well. The next thing you have is this README file, which is pretty important. I would urge you to go ahead and open that up and take a look at it, because one of the things that it has, just like the website, it tells you what software versions I've tested it on. So I've put them in here of what I've tested, and also the printers that it's supported on. So I happen to own a Heidi 510 LS, so I've tested on that. But I have testers that who are other photo booth owners as well, who have tested it on their printers, and this template works just fine on their printers as well. The other thing you have in here is the fonts that I use for the template itself. So I generally try to use fonts that are easily accessible or available via the Adobe Photoshop suite. But there are sometimes where I can't find one that I like on there, so I download them from, of course, thefont.com. So I put the name of the font that I use, and just copy and paste this link right into your web browser, and that should get you right to this location to go ahead and download it. If it's a local file that I have on Adobe Photoshop, I would note it as that, just like I did there. So then that way there's no mystery as to what fonts I use. But of course, remember, this is all creativity. And if you don't like the fonts I selected, you could always use your own. Won't hurt the template at all. So let's go ahead and close out of that. And let's get into what we have with regards to the Photoshop software. So if you double click the PSD file, that would open up your Photoshop application, and I happen to have it here ready to go. And when you open it up, this is what you get. Now, I'm not going to go into how to actually manipulate all this. What I'm going to do is really just kind of go over where things are located. And the simplest way to do that is by using your eye icon right here to kind of tell you where things are located. So for example, the parts that you can edit will say enter your text. Now I have enter your text in several locations. The first one is the most visible locations, which is right here on the top folder. If you open that up, you will be able to edit all these text, and I'm just closing them with the eye icon, and I'm going to reopen them so you kind of could see what's being affected there. So these texts will affect these areas right here. Okay. The other location where I have text, for example, the bottom text down here, which is your business information, can also be edited, and that is located in the background area, because I actually have it printing as the background. And I'll go into a little tutorial in a few seconds here as to how the anatomy of this template itself, how that is. So the bottom portion here that you can edit is right here where it says enter company information. So you can go ahead and click that open. Oops. Click that open, and you can see that you have the rest of the item there. Now, if you choose not to put your company information, you could always just hide that portion of it, and that goes away. And if you wanted to hide the rest of it, meaning this little icon here and a Facebook icon, that's actually located where the arrows folder is, and the miscellaneous stuff is the Facebook stuff. You can just hide that and that'll go away. But if you want that, then of course just leave the eyes open, and that will print right on the photo as a background layer. So you could edit that portion just by double clicking the mouse, and it highlights the font that could be, or the space that could be edited, and you just type whatever you need there, copy and paste your Facebook information. You're good to go. Cancel out of that. Okay, so going to the second part of this, the anatomy of the template itself. Let me go ahead and talk to you a little bit about that. Now, here's a simple illustration of a photo booth template. And what I'm going to show you here is really the anatomy of a photo booth template and what makes the template itself. Now, in my mind, this is probably how it actually even goes to the printer. You know, it goes to the printer in layers. So there are 3 layers in the photo booth template. And your first layer in the photo booth template is your background layer. Second layer is your photo layer. And the third layer is your actual overlay layer. Now, out of the 3 layers, there are 2 layers that can be manipulated in the Photoshop software. And those 2 layers that you can edit in the Photoshop software are the background layer and the overlay layer. The middle layer, which is the photo layer itself, is actually the layer that can be created or can be adjusted within the photo booth software itself. Now, when you put all 3 layers together, that's what makes the photo booth template. Okay, so now we're back here to the template itself, and now you have an understanding of how the layers work. So I'm going to show you here how you actually, what that looks like in Photoshop. Now, I just want to show you now what the overlay layer looks like. And the way you show what the overlay layer looks like is you just got to do the eye thing again. Just hide the background layer and hide your text layer. And there you have your overlay layer. So this is what's going to print on top. Now, of course, you don't want the gray square boxes because those are just as a placeholder. So you could just hide that, and that's called photo spots. That's what I called it, and it actually says hide. So before you send this to save, you make sure you hide that layer. So now that the layer is hidden, the way you actually save this layer is you go to File, which is probably not in my screen, but you go to File, you go to Save for Web. This is the way I do it. And make sure that this area right here, if you do the drop down, you see you have several options. You make sure you select PNG 24 if you're using Photoshop CS6. I believe CS 5.5 and 5 is the same thing. So same thing as Pro. I think you do the same thing, or CS4, sorry. So you do that, and then you just hit save, which I'm going to do. And then you tell it where you want it to save. Now, the best way to do is organize your folders and make sure that you put it in a place where all your photo booth files are. So in my case, I actually have a location for photo booth files, and those are located right here, my photo booth file folder. As soon as this thing stops, I could click on it. Oh, there we go. Okay, and I just create a template, and then I just drop it in there somewhere. I'm not going to do that now, but that's general idea what you would do. And then of course, if you're like my photo booth computer is actually a different machine, so I would actually save it onto a USB drive and then take it over to the computer, pop it in, and drop it into the appropriate folder. That's what I would do there. Now, the first layer that I mentioned in my little tutorial was the background layer. So the way I would show the background is simple. I just hide the overlay layer and of course hide the photo spot layer, and that now is my background layer. Now, as I mentioned, you did have an option to put your text in the background area or in the overlay area. It all depends. If your text, this is the photo layer that's actually printed when you take your pictures. And if you say you wanted to have the text over the photo itself, well, the only way to do that really is by putting the text in the overlay layer. That's what's called overlay layer, because it's going to lay over the photo itself. In this case, the text actually sits away from any of the photo layers. So my personal preference would just be to put it on the background layer. So I would hide everything else, and this would be my background. So I would have the name, whatever message I want to put, and the date, and I would make this part of my background. So then I would just go here to File, Save for Web. And now in this case, the software that I use is the Breeze System software for Photo Booth, and their background layer for the Breeze is actually JPEG. So I will change the preset to a high JPEG. All right, there. So now this layer, this background layer, will save as a JPEG itself. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit cancel, but you go ahead and hit save. I just wanted to show you how I did it. And that's pretty much it. Once you have that set up, you are ready to go. Your photo booth template is ready to go. All you have to do is just drag and drop or sneaker net it to your photo booth computer and just drop it into the appropriate folders and test, and you're ready to go. As I mentioned, my next tutorial will be on how to set up the coordinates for the Breeze system. So if you don't know how to do that, just watch the next tutorial and I'll have that. Once again, thank you for purchasing my templates, and hope you have fun with it, and hope you're able to manipulate it and be creative with it, because it's definitely 100%. You can edit it 100%. So thank you again.